Hey everybody, welcome back for Module 6. If you remember in Module 5, I first introduced one of the four most important feng shui tools. That was working with and controlling the flow of energy, or the qi. The second tool is what we're going to cover today, which is the Yin Yang theory. And probably everybody that is watching this particular module has seen this particular symbol on this page, the Tai Chi. The white portion is considered to be the Yang portion. The black portion is considered to be the Yin portion. And if you notice, there's a little bit of each in those portions too, which basically means that you can't have all Yin. You're going to have some Yang, and you can't have all Yang because you're going to have some Yin. This even goes with respect to people and their personalities. You're not all going to be one or the other. There's going to be a balance of having these particular descriptions or adjectives. The Yin Yang symbol, the Tai Chi, has been used for a long, long time. And it represents an awful lot of different things to different people. Before we get to that, let's look at particular adjectives, which I think will be very helpful to you as we get into this. Now, under the Yin, I'm going to pick up on a few adjectives that I'd like you to keep in mind as we go along through this module. They are dark, interior, still, passive, cold, sleepy. And then if you look under the Yang adjectives, it's light, exterior, movement, active, heat, wakeful. Okay? Two totally different ideas, really the complete opposite of each other. So again, if you go down to the Tai Chi down there, the light portion, the white portion is representing the Yang. That's the light portion. And it has a little black dot in it, which again represents the idea that you can't have all Yang. And then the black portion is the Yin, and it has a little white dot, which means you can't be all Yin. And as usual, we're trying to create the perfect balance whenever we're working on an environment. We don't want to go to an extreme, either too much or too little. Now, the Tai Chi symbol has been used for a long, long time. It represents things like the cycle of life, the 4 seasons, the growing seasons, 24 hours in a clock. Believe it or not, you can see the morning and then the middle of the day on the right-hand side in the orange. The morning is the thinner portion up at the top. The middle of the day is down closer to the bottom. And then as we get to the thinner portion of the blue, which is the Yin, we're now getting into dusk. And then the middle of the night is up at the top. So it's been used for a lot of different things to represent things in a person's life, the Tai Chi. Here's the cat with a Yin Yang symbol on their face. Now, animals can represent a lot of really good feng shui and a good balance of the Yin Yang. Just make sure that animals are in good temper and also in good health. Therefore, they bring in an awful lot of positive energy. The Yin Yang theory goes like this. There's got to be places of darkness to comprehend and totally appreciate places of light. The light, again, is Yang, but without the Yin, we do not get the best effects, and that goes vice versa. Very important that we have a balance. We don't want to have all light. Think about what that would be like. And we don't want to have all dark in a cave with no light. How would that feel to you? So light's all around us. It's something we can't touch or feel, just like the Qi, but it's responsible for everything that we take in one of our senses, the vision part. It has great potential to impact our environment. If you look at these pictures, You can take the one on the bottom left before we started, and you can see, yeah, it had some light coming in that was a little harsh, but the rest of the room was very boring and somewhat depressing. And then we balanced the room and gave some more light to some of the corners and took away the harshness from the windows, and it gave it a much more comfortable feel. Light is something that we really don't even want to notice in a room. Quite often what we notice is the bad lighting. Bad lighting draws our attention to the wrong elements. You look at the picture on the left, you right away will notice that overhead light. And then you'll see the shadow below the bowl on the table. And then you'll see reflections in the painting. None of it really is coming off as very positive. So good lighting is made up of several different effects. You want to have a variety. That's a key word in every one of your rooms. You don't want to have just reliance on one of them, which we do way too much in particular parts of our society. If you look at the first picture on the left, we're taking advantage of the natural light. Feng Shui makes this the preference, natural light. But then when it gets dark out, we have the opportunity to use lighting in different ways. The next picture is using an overhead lighting, not a terribly comfortable looking room. But then when you add, as you go to the right, something called wall washing, it now gives a slightly different effect, a more comfortable effect. And then the last picture even gives more opportunity. So if you only have one lighting source, quite often you are thinking in a limited way. And Feng Shui is against limitation. Have at least a couple of lighting techniques in every room. Light can be manipulated just like energy. And in this room, we have an awful lot of sunlight coming through the window. And that added with all of this color of yellow, which is very bright, actually takes us over the top and takes us out of balance. As you're going to find out, certain rooms are more yin and certain rooms are more yang. A dining room should be more yang, but not to this extreme. Lighting is a big part of getting the best balance in any room. It's a delicate balance. And it's something that you need to get very good at, whether you're going to stay in a house or you're going to sell a house. Lighting coming from different angles can really change the height of the room, but also change the width if you get good at it. Natural light, as I've said before, is always the preferred light source in Feng Shui. Always open the curtains and the blinds to let in the light in the morning. Always. Make sure the windows are kept clean. A film of dirt can block up to 50% of that precious sunlight that we're so interested in. Again, think of that deep cleaning that we mentioned. Every once in a while, dust your light bulbs on a regular basis. They also have the chance to stop an awful lot of very positive lighting in a room. And when you're selling especially, remove the window screens. Great use of light is it highlights certain architectural benefits, but it can be used as a focal point too. So wherever you put the light, this is what's going to draw attention to us as a human, but it also is going to draw the attention of the chi or the energy that's entering the room. So wherever the light is the strongest, this is where your eye and my eye is going to go first. If possible, please don't use overheads much, especially when you're selling. So leave the visitor's vision to see the best features of a room and not its worst, like you see in the bottom right. I don't want to see the television set. I don't want to see that cord that's hanging down. But that is what we're seeing when we first enter that room. Now, downlighting is the most common type of lighting, but it is very harsh and quite often not very positive to us as humans. It lights the floors, but it leaves the walls, the ceilings, and the corners in shadow. and very uninviting, not comfortable at all. So it doesn't do justice to most rooms. It does work pretty well with rooms that have high ceilings. I try not to use downlighting when I'm selling. And sometimes that can be very difficult, especially in a kitchen like this one. But I've gotten very good at using a lamp here or there, or turning down the harshness in some way or another. But downlighting does not do the best for us. Uplighting can make a room seem quite more spacious. It's an excellent way to lighten corners. It does cause a lot of reflection back and forth. And it can improve the yang balance of a dark room. I like using uplighting a lot when I'm doing an open house. But it's almost impossible for you to be using uplighting when you're not there. These canisters especially can get very hot. But consider using uplighting once in a while when you're there. It does create a different feeling. Wall washing, once again. It can emphasize vertical surfaces. And it can increase the width of a room. It really can set off a painting or different types of architecture. It creates a great focal point if you don't have one. Task lighting is just another way to create another use for that room. And if you're only using overhead lighting, for example, you've limited the ways that you can use that room. And limitation, again, is something you want to get away from severely. Incandescent lighting is being phased out, but it is a very comforting and welcoming type of lighting. It's full spectrum, and it gives us true colors, but it's becoming rarer. So we're getting more and more into the use of fluorescent. It's definitely improving, and it's definitely more efficient, but it's still a flatter and a less focused light. The colors can look washed out. As I said before, I try to never use it much when I'm selling a house. Somewhat uncomfortable, and it is unnatural looking, and we look unnatural under this type of lighting too. So if you think about the schools that you have gone to or maybe teach in, or the offices that you spend a lot of time in, they're using these overhead fluorescent lights. They actually give us some headaches in some cases. They make us feel uncomfortable and less productive. So sometimes it's better to try to get away from totally fluorescent lights. So consider the idea of maybe bringing in a lamp, even if it is to your office. But whatever types of lighting you choose, consider several different types of lighting. Consider the natural light right away and complement it well. Now, the Yin Yang theory can be used everywhere. It can be used outside too. And again, we're going to put an awful lot of time into curb appeal, but let me first introduce this idea here too, that the light and the shade and the contrast can create a really nice balance outside. If you look at the coleus up on the top right, notice the different color of leaves. It's much more interesting and exciting to a human being. It also attracts energy, whereas the landscaping down at the bottom is not interesting and exciting, and it actually attracts less energy. Now, one of the first things you want to do when you actually work on a home and the Yin Yang theory is to draw the midpoint of a house. Here's the midpoint. And you're going to get that midpoint line parallel to the street. Now, we'll get to a corner lot in just a moment. Let's take a look at this particular situation. It's parallel to the street, and in the front is the Yang part of the house, and in the back is the Yin part of the house. And we want to make sure we get this right, not only for our comfort, but for a visitor's comfort. Now, if you're thinking about selling, the buyer is definitely going to be looking for the yin part of the house. It might be done on a subconscious level, but if they can't find a yin part of the house, very easily, they're going to start to worry. They're going to start to cross your house where they can get away, where they can do some yin type activities. The yang part of the house is, again, the active, aggressive, a lot of movement. This is a great place to have a dining room or a living room. The yin part of the house is a great place for a bedroom. Now, sometimes the front door can be to the side. Again, find the street, draw the midpoint parallel to the street. The yang part of the house this time is sort of to the right. The yin part is to the left in the back of the house. So it's not always with respect to the front door. You want to find the front door, but you really want to find the street. So again, if a person or a visitor walks into this house, the place where they're going to restore their energy is in the back of the house. If you're on a corner lot, this is the way it's going to look. You're going to draw a couple of midpoints, and you're going to find out that on the first floor, that one little section is the yin part of that first floor. And boy, do you have to play that up really well. If you're staying, you got to make sure that this part of the house is very, very comforting and is more your place, your area, where you get away. To both streets. This is a good place probably for maybe a dining room or a place where you socialize. Now, which street is the busiest is very important to you, because that is where we have to put an awful lot of emphasis on toning it down. So one of those two streets has probably got more traffic on it, and you need to find that out. A lot of our houses nowadays are not squares or rectangles. We have L shapes and U shapes and every different type of shape. Again, find the road, draw the midpoint the best you can, and find the yin part of the house. Okay? So in this case right here, the yang part, again, is closest to the street. Find the street, draw the midpoint. Again, you're going to find out that the most yin part of the house is where I've got the word yin right now, because, again, it has a portion in front of it as a buffer, and it's the furthest away from the street. Again, here's a corner lot. I think you can find, again, the greatest yin part, and that is in the back left-hand corner. That is the best place if we have a bedroom on the first floor to be. The worst place to have a bedroom in this case would be in the front right, where the greatest yang would be. That person would have the most difficulty sleeping. And therefore, we'd have to do an awful lot more to make sure that that room was more yin by using different types of coloring and fabric and so forth. There's another corner lot. So again, you have an awful lot of yang in here. And the yin is in the back of the house. It looks like the road in the front of the house, or down at the bottom, is the most heavily traveled. So again, we have a yin in the back of the house, but there is a street to the right. So there is a little less peace and quiet in the far right-hand corner of where the yin is. The best yin location would be to the back left. Now there are yin colors and there are yang colors too. And you need to get very good at using them and picking them out when you decide to paint a room, or you decide to actually recommend to a client a paint color. What you need to know about yin colors, and these are the yin colors, are the greens and the blues and the purples, is that they recede and lower energy. They recede and lower energy. So therefore a person is going to get a much better sleep and restore their energy a lot better in a room like this if the ratio of yin to yang is stronger towards yin. Now the ratio we're looking for in any yin and yang environment is more 60-40 yin to yang or 70-30 yin to yang. You never want to go to the extreme. Again, let's think about a yin room that is 90% yin, 10% yang. That room would come off as somewhat depressing. Okay, it would also come off as a room that really would not be a good place to do an awful lot of creative thinking in at all. So you're at an extreme now. So what you want to do is bring it closer towards 60-40, 70-30. And those ratios I'm going to use all the time. When we start talking about landscaping, I'm going to use 60-40, 70-30. So again, these colors recede and lower energy. Now the other side of the color wheel, these are warm or hot colors that advance and excite. So these are great for social rooms. Like for example in this living room, this orange, this burnt orange looks very good on the walls there, but it would be very, very much of a problem in most bedrooms. So the yang colors are more yellows and oranges and reds. And in a lot of cases, these are going to be more accent colors. I certainly do not ever want to paint walls the color red or even orange too much. Often if I'm going to use that as a wall color, I'll paint it on one wall at the most. But again, these colors actually advance and excite, and they're great for social rooms like dens, dining rooms, and living rooms. So back to this picture of this dining room. It's got a yang color on the walls, but it can be very stimulating, probably too much stimulating in a situation like this. So we needed to soften the yang with more yin. The round table or an oval table is really the best type of table to have if you can. It's just a little more yin. And there's another reason, because it also takes away sharp corners, which we'll get into. Soft fabrics on chairs and windows can also give you more yin. Okay? Using curtains on windows instead of blinds can actually bring more yin. The type of candles and indirect lighting you use can make it more yin. Even the colors of the flowers can make it more yin. So this room, to me, is out of balance. It's got too much yang. And as you'll find out, colors like yellow can actually stimulate appetite, which is another problem for another day, which we'll get into. So what I probably would do in this case, because they actually have a lot of good things going on around the table, is I would probably want to take the wall color and change it to something. I also might even want to do something with the curtains. But certainly at this time of the day, with a little bit too much sunlight that are going off of those walls and making a very yang environment. The bedrooms. As you remember, in the 8 most impressionable moments of the 8th test when you're selling, there are 2 rooms that are very, very pivotal. One is the kitchen and one is the master bedroom. Now let's take all bedrooms for a second. All bedrooms need to be 60% to 40% yin to yang, or 70% to 30% yin to yang. All bedrooms. All bedrooms need to be showing that they're going to be perfect for getting a great night's sleep. Getting a great night's sleep leads us to having better health. And better health leads us to being able to succeed in a lot of other ways. So the amount of sleep and the quality of sleep that a person gets has an awful lot to do with how well you're going to do in life. So the two bedrooms up at the top are really a problem for me. The busy wallpaper is too stimulating. The wall color in the other bedroom, even though it's very attractive, that in conjunction with all of the red is way over the top yang. So it's very conceivable that anybody that sleeps in those two bedrooms is not going to get a good night's sleep. So the goal, of course, is to wake up feeling really refreshed. And we want a home buyer to see this and feel this also. If they don't see that, on a subconscious level, it registers immediately that it's probably not right for them. The two pictures down at the bottom are very yin colored rooms. They're using, again, the correct side of the color wheel. So the cool colors allow for the energy to be doused somewhat, allows the person to get a really good night's sleep. Even the full-length curtains can be very, very helpful. Using carpets or throw rugs can actually also create a more yin environment too. So making sure that your bedroom comes off as a place that you can restore your energy for the next day is very, very pivotal for you to be able to succeed in every walk of your life. Okay, that is it for this particular module. We will be back in just a little bit